All right. Right-wingers have been up in arms about the Dark Brandon speech in front of Independence Hall last week. If you guys didn't see the picture, it has permeated the internet. If you see it from a right-wing source, it's cropped like this so that you only see the red behind him. And others have shown a different part of the speech where he's got like his fist raised in the air or something. And they're doing it to make him look totalitarian and shit. Now, if you go to the New York Times or something, it's a further out shot, and you can see that it's draped in red, white, and blue, or not draped, caressed in red, white, and blue light. Independence Hall is. And it's got the blue and the red behind Biden.
Come on, man.
But right-wingers have went nuts over this speech. They've tried to make him out to be a totalitarian, but Jamie Raskin went on at Face the Nation this morning on CBS to say that Biden was correct in calling out the extremists.
Jamie Raskin, a Democratic member of the January 6th Select Committee. Congressman, good to see you. Good morning.
Thanks so much for having me, Major.
So, former President Trump says that MAGA Republicans are trying to save democracy and they want to be taken seriously on this issue. So let's review.
They should not be taken seriously.
He said the 2020 election should be rerun or he should be reinstated in office, and that if reelected in 2024, he would provide apologies and full pardons to those charged and or convicted for storming the Capitol on January 6th. Evaluate that.
Well, first, if he's saying
it's
that
nuts.
Should be rerun, which is something he's been asserting from the beginning, that's totally outside of the Constitution. There's no procedure for the military just to seize the
batshit crazy
and run a new election, which is one of the things that his disgraced former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn was pushing, and we know was part of the January 6th plot. Look, more than 60 courts rejected every claim of electoral fraud and corruption which Donald Trump advanced. He's had the benefit of more than 60 courts, including 8 courts where he appointed the judges to office, look at all those claims, and they were all rejected. It was rejected in the states.
Yeah, that's just those election claims. He has had so many chances in court throughout the FBI shit, the release of his tax records. He is constantly challenging stuff in court and is constantly losing.
Are one, they don't accept the results of elections that don't go their way, and 2, they embrace political violence. And I think that's why President Biden was right to sound the alarm this week about these continuing attacks on our constitutional order from the outside by Donald Trump and his movement.
Let's talk about the...
And it's not just about Donald Trump. It's not just about January 6th. There is terrorism every fucking where. And Kiwi Farms is at the front of that. I'm going to take you to a Twitter thread by a journalist for NBC News, I think, Ben Collins. I've been covering the bad parts of the internet for a long time now. For years, there was one site extremist researchers warned me not to cover because publicizing it would be dangerous. But it's time people know Kiwi Farms and how they're chasing political enemies around the world. Kiwi Farms was created by former 8chan administrator Josh Moon. 8chan founder Fred Brennan spent the last few years trying to get 8chan removed from the internet for the harm it causes. What Moon is doing is worse, Brennan told me. He's actually targeting specific people. How is Kiwi Farms worse than 4chan and 8chan? The 3 people the site have targeted later died by suicide. Some are harassed even after their death by the site's organized mob, who brigade social media pages of their loved ones. And yes, it is trans people, LGBTQ community that they are attacking. Why is Kiwi Farms more dangerous than any other site? Its far-right user base abuses all of the private data companies have accrued over the last decade, then weaponizes it against perceived enemies. Their latest target, Clara Sorrenti, known as Keffals, who had to flee the country last week. Kiwi Farms archives data of political enemies, frequently trans people, often private citizens, then uses it to create terror. They dox and SWAT enemies. They identify enemies' friend and bosses, then bombard them with accusations of pedophilia to get them fired. This is stochastic terror that's being implemented as part of the culture war, said Carabello, who said that Sorrenti has faced every tactic in Kiwi Farms' information war playbook. Kiwi Farms' goal is a world where LGBTQ users are not going to be out and open on social media. They're going to live in fear of threats and harassment. Clara Sorrenti was the most recent victim of the Kiwi Farms playbook. Last month, she opened her door to find a police officer's gun pointed at her face. A Kiwi Farms user had sent in a threat of a mass shooting at her local city hall in her name. It was particularly bad because I'm trans, but literally anyone can make a burner email in your name and attach a photo of a gun and say you're going to go on a mass shooting, Sorrenti said during a video call with NBC News, which she conducted from a hotel where she is hiding. Depending on who the cops are and how you react, you might die as a result of it. Sorrenti had a following and decided to push back, starting a campaign to cut off Kiwi Farms' hosting. She went to a hotel and took a picture with her cat, telling fans she was safe. Kiwi Farms users identified her hotel by the bed sheets, and the threats increased. By this point, the Uber accounts for Sorrenti and her immediate family had been hacked by Kiwi Farms users. They then had access to her every movement and addresses she had been to for weeks. Her family started receiving automated calls like the one below.
3. To access your personal options, press 4. Saved message 1:31 p.m.
Hi there. Is this dude Megan calling you here to let you know that you've been doxxed? How do you think this happened? Well, you see, your personal information got posted all over the internet, and I'm just letting you know that someone special has it out for you. Don't worry, nothing bad is gonna happen. Just a friendly reminder. Have a nice day.
Realizing she needed to flee the country, Sorrenti flew to Northern Ireland to evade the swatting and stalking. Within days, Kiwi Farms and 4chan users found out where she was staying. One took a picture outside of the home. Sorrenti's life, like many others, has been turned upside down by this website. Even the cops that swatted her were later doxxed and threatened by Kiwi Farms users. They doxxed the cops. There's currently no recourse to stop this kind of fascist terror. Sorrenti fears Kiwi Farms harassment techniques will soon be duplicated by far-right trolls to advance larger culture war goals. And she is absolutely correct. They're already doing it. Something like Kiwi Farms can be utilized by people with a lot more resources to do a lot more harm. Ben Collins continues that I'm writing about Kiwi Farms now because their playbook of terror is being adopted by far-right internet spaces across the web. Boston Children's Hospital was locked down due to a bomb threat this week. Kiwi Farms and 4chan users clogged an LGBTQ suicide hotline a day later. On Wednesday, Alex Kaplan, the senior researcher at Media Matters, reported that the trolls from Kiwi Farms and 4chan, with support from other far-right influencers, began a campaign to clog up suicide hotlines for the Trevor Project, which is meant to help LGBTQ plus youth who are considering self-harm. Kiwi Farms' playbook, using our data to terrorize political enemies, is where the culture war is headed in 2022 and 2024. Trans people are their current targets, but they are broadening their enemies list. As Brennan told me, they could easily become an FBI agent database. Kind of Kiwi Farms thing could easily become, say, an FBI agent database. It would not be hard. Warren Frederick Brennan, who previously worked with the founder of Kiwi Farms at another extremist site, 8chan. Brennan believes that the harassment techniques being used to target trans people now could easily be channeled towards larger goals and government targets, including other recent political targets of the far right. In fact, Marjorie Taylor Greene was caught in the crossfire just last week. The Congresswoman was swatted 2 nights in a row. The caller, using that similar automated voice message, cited Kiwi Farms. But I once again am telling you, it was right-wingers. I don't know, maybe they have a problem with Marjorie Taylor Greene, but nominally they are on her side. And they used it as a way to attack trans people. We're going to read Ben Collins' story from NBC News. Anti-trans stalkers at Kiwi Farms are chasing one victim around the world. Their list of targets is growing. Clara Sorrenti and those supporting her are hoping to open up Kiwi Farms to debilitating virtual attacks by demanding Cloudflare, one of its internet security service vendors, drop the site, citing an imminent and emergency threat to human life. Cloudflare said on Saturday that it would block Kiwi Farms, putting the future of the forum in doubt. In a public statement posted Wednesday under Cloudflare CEO Matthew Prince's byline, the company said it will not drop the security services for any of its customers. That statement did not mention Kiwi Farms by name. Once again, they did indeed drop them on Saturday. This is a story written before that, but I actually have the statement from Cloudflare. We have blocked Kiwi Farms. Visitors to any of the Kiwi Farms sites that use any of Cloudflare's services will see a Cloudflare block page and a link to this post. Kiwi Farms may move their sites to other providers and in doing so come back online, but we have taken steps to block their content from being accessed through our infrastructure. This is an extraordinary decision for us to make, and given Cloudflare's role as an internet infrastructure provider, a dangerous one that we're not comfortable with. However, the rhetoric on the Kiwi Farm site and specific targeted threats have escalated over the past 48 hours to the point that we believe there is an unprecedented emergency and immediate threat to human life unlike we have previously seen from Kiwi Farms or any other customer before. The CEO wasn't going to do it. No, it was immense pressure. It was immense pressure that got it going. But they're already reorganizing on Telegram. Like they knew it was coming 2 weeks ago. They've been talking about getting dropped by Cloudflare. They knew it was coming. They were organizing other channels. It's gonna make it harder. There's still going to be a threat and organized together, but a lot of their information is gone. A lot of resources that they had to work with are gone. But there's still a network. It's still out there. And it's just been driven deeper underground, unfortunately. If the ongoing efforts to close the forum fail, experts warn Kiwi Farm's target list and techniques could expand as culture war issues gain more attention ahead of the 2024 election, potentially affecting more LGBTQ private citizens or creating a national security threat with the expansion of Kiwi Farm's harassment tactics to new targets. Let's go through just the stories, the dystopian hellscape that we're living through right now, guys, as if that wasn't enough. A former member of the JFK QAnon cult tried to kidnap her own children. Despite everything, many of the former cult members' online supporters believe her children were taken from her as part of a trafficking conspiracy. When Samantha Ricks was kicked out of the JFK QAnon cult, led by Michael Protzman at the beginning of December, she was already in a downward spiral. A couple of weeks later, Ricks was accused of substance abuse by the woman who had taken her family in. Then Child Protective Services said that she had exposed her children to inappropriate sexual behavior. 3 days before Christmas, Oklahoma Child Protective Services knocked on her door and took her 6-year-old daughter and her 5-year-old son into foster care. Ricks then raged online about how Child Protective Services was secretly trafficking children. My God. She accused everyone, including those who tried to help her, of collaborating to take her children away from her, beliefs founded in QAnon conspiracies about global child sex trafficking rings that are reinforced by extremist groups who have made it their mission to prey on vulnerable parents. After months of spreading misinformation, lashing out at everyone around her, and even fundraising, Ricks took matters into her own hands. What happened next was a culmination of her extremist views and desperate outlook. On August 8th, Ricks tried to kidnap her own children. Tumultuous months leading up to the kidnapping were preceded by years of instability and increasingly paranoid behavior. Ricks split up with the father of her 2 children over 3 years ago and recently had been making late-night phone calls, according to a family member, where she claimed that her neighbors were plotting to steal her kids. Sounds like a paranoid schizophrenic. However, I am no psychologist and I have no expertise, and it's not right to diagnose other people. The family member, who spoke to Vice News on condition of anonymity to protect the privacy and safety, said Georgia's Child Protective Services contacted the children's father to discuss allegations of neglect, which is how the family first learned about the situation. But before anyone could intervene, Ricks packed up her car and fled to Texas, leaving in a tent before she arrived in Dallas. Her family said they called Child Protective Services to tell them Ricks had left the state, was traveling with a gun. Joined a JFK QAnon cult in October of 2021. That's when they thought that RFK Jr., when they thought JFK. That one was confusing. I got confused about which Kennedy was coming back from the grave with that one. I'm sorry. Eventually, however, things soured. Ricks was ejected from the QAnon group, and members accused her of abusing drugs and alcohol, according to Telegram chats and text messages reviewed by Vice. With no money and nowhere to go, Ricks appealed to an online group that had formed to try and help families affected by Protzman's cult. One woman, known in the group as Navy Mom, volunteered to take Ricks and her 2 children into her home in El Reno, Oklahoma. They were very malnourished. They looked like they ain't seen the sun in months. They were white with dark circles around their eyes, she told Vice News. They would start screaming about some guy coming to get them. It soon seemed Ricks was once again abusing drugs. Her host said that she had drugs and pills mailed to the house. And then on December 22nd, the Oklahoma Child Protective Services arrived at the house and placed the kids with a foster family in Stillwater, Oklahoma. It's still not clear what exactly triggered this, though Ricks posted on social media that she thinks her former friends from the JFK QAnon cult reported her. Over the course of the next 7 months, Ricks spent much of her time trying to find anyone who would help her get her children back, including lawyers and experts. She even started a crowdfunding campaign titled Help Rescue My Children Kidnapped by Traffickers. To date, she has received just over $2,000 in donations via GiveSendGo. Most of those donations came from a group called the S2 Project, an organization whose website lists a variety of far-right, libertarian, and conspiracy ideologies. Their motto is the Great American Citizen Investigation for Transparency in Government. So, another person Ricks sought out for help was Michael Lewis Arthur Meyer, an extremist who founded the Veterans on Patrol in Arizona, a group the Southern Poverty Law Center calls an anti-government militia. Meyer has claimed he has a network of safe houses around the country where he can house parents who have kidnapped their children, and came to prominence in March when he said that he had granted sanctuary to an Idaho mother.
My name is Michael Lewis Arthur Meyer. I am a 3.5-year border journalist. I'm here as a journalist today reporting on Banks and Gaffney law firm. Laura Gaffney is a self-professed democratic socialist that committed perjury before Idaho family courts in Teton County, and she's directly responsible for attempting to abduct 3-year-old River Stanley from his loving mother, Sarah Stanley. Banks and Gaffney trial lawyers. Idaho Falls, we'll be seeing you again.
This kind of seems like how Kiwi Farms wants to go and put people on blast on the internet and shit. Tactics going mainstream. Meyer told Vice News that he has been in communication with Ricks for months, and that he was added to several chat groups on encrypted messaging platforms that were set up in July to organize the attempted kidnapping. Meyer also added that he didn't participate in the planning, but when asked if he notified the CPS or the foster family about the plans, he said, "So you would expect me to inform foster parents that are holding children illegally that their rightful parents are coming back to get their children." A few weeks later, on August 8th, Ricks and a man named Elijah Erlbach from Missouri pulled up outside the foster home in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and grabbed Ricks' 6-year-old daughter as she was riding her bike around the neighborhood. Ricks and Erlbach planned to circle the block to go back and try to get the 5-year-old son, but their foster dad jumped in his car and chased them. Soon, a police car arrived on the scene. An officer pulled Ricks and Erlbach over and arrested them both, according to court documents filed by the Payne County Sheriff's Department. Inside the car, alongside the 6-year-old girl, the arresting officer found a fully loaded AR-15 and a handgun. Ricks is now facing a felony charge of child stealing, which carries a 10-year prison sentence. She appeared in court last week and refused to tell the judge who her lawyer was. Despite everything, many of Ricks' online supporters believe she is the victim and that her children were taken from her illegally. Meyer reportedly continues to message Ricks' family members, asking them for updates on the children. Neither Meyer nor Oldham said they knew Ricks' accomplice, Erlbach, and it's still unclear how she first made contact with him. Moving down to Sarasota, Florida, the Proud Boys celebrated a MAGA school board candidate's victory, flashing white power signs. The Proud Boys supported a slate of anti-woke candidates and ran a successful campaign to take over the Sarasota school board. Ladies and gentlemen and non-binary peoples, this is what is going to be happening all over your country. This is why I am so upset. People like Almanara come in here talking to me about presidential races when fucking fascists are taking over your school boards, your city councils, your county governments, your state houses. This is fucking scary. A trio of anti-woke GOP candidates claimed victory in elections for the Sarasota School Board this week, boosted by endorsements from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and support from a far-right group founded by members of the Proud Boys. During celebrations on Tuesday night, 2 of the newly elected board members were photographed at the official victory party with 2 of the Proud Boys, one of whom posed flashing the OK sign, a known white power dog whistle. Pictures posted on the Sarasota Watchdogs Facebook page shows soon-to-be board members Bright Ziegler and Robin Marinelli. I'm close enough, celebrating with supporters. Among them were James Howell and Nick Radovic, both known members of the Proud Boys, a far-right extremist group that's been designated a terrorist group in several countries. In several countries. Meanwhile, these group of Rhodes Scholars decided they were going to go armed and protest books that apparently weren't in the venue that they thought they were.
5 years ago, this was anointed the best small library in America. Today, the trustees are facing a recall.
What I hate to see is my community torn apart like this.
The director just resigned.
Do you feel that you've given in? That you've been defeated here?
Ray, I think they're more important. And your power. If you are interested in politics and you want to exercise power, you're just one of millions of people in a coalition on a presidential election. You have an insane amount of power if you get involved locally. You are one of just a few dozen probably that are making the decisions locally if you get involved. Idaho locals push library to ban books that it doesn't have. And that's why we need people that are informed running for office locally.
Part of me does, yes. But they start showing up at your house, guns on their hips and Bible tracts in their hands.
Activists demanding that the library ban more than 400 books, like genderqueer.
Even if we do nothing to you, eventually, if you don't repent of wanting to harm our children with pornography, that's up to God.
Things need to change. Otherwise...
By the way, I called out a far-right page on Facebook today for their bullshit and said all they were doing was accusing anybody in the LGBTQ community of being a pedophile. What did they do? And, showed where multiple Republicans are indeed pedophiles. show that the church is full of pedophiles. They erased all my comments and called me a pedophile after they blocked me. That's the people that we're dealing with here.
You bring curses upon yourselves, period. From the Most High.
Are any of those books in the library?
Not a single one.
Still, this little story might not survive.
Our insurer has decided to non-renew for what they're saying is increased risk exposures. We can't operate without insurance.
We bumped into one of the people pushing the recall, taking out books to see if they should also be banned.
If I take someone else's word, that's not good, right? There you go. Exactly.
She refused to talk to us. In fact, everyone on that side of the argument we reached out to refused to talk to us. But one of them
exactly
motivation at a library board meeting. They are now held here because so many people were showing up to the meetings, so many of them were armed, that they moved the library board meetings to a bigger building that is also right next to the sheriff's department.
Here is that one woman's motivation.
My job is to protect our kids from sexual deviants who will be drawn to our library if inappropriate sexual material is on our library shelves and using our kids as prey.
This week, we showed up with our cameras to a board meeting.
It was wonderful to not be, attacked.
And the would-be book banners did not.
There's some boring meetings.
Wow. Wow. Well, CNN, please continue to put your cameras in those fucking meetings and keep those fucks away. My God. And that tells you everything you need to know.
Going on, Nick, is there is a group of individuals that are moving into the area who they have the intent of turning this into what they call the American Redoubt.
Coined back in 2011 by a Christian survivalist, the American Redoubt, a refuge for self-described God-fearing, liberty-loving patriots. This store opened recently, owned by a pastor who moved up from California. Here's how he described it back in 2015.
If we will put him first, blessed will be the redoubt. By God's grace, we trust that the redoubt, we won't see the homosexuality and rampant lesbianism that we see in California.
There are now so many wannabe redoubters, some realtors cater to them. One has this ad on its website.
In the days of old, the men would lead, women would nurture.
The Aryan nations, for a long time they were headquartered in this part of Idaho, they had a similar plan, but for a whites-only homeland up here. Many locals fought against that. Today, many locals are fighting against the redoubters and the book banners.
They've been going to library board meetings and yelling and screaming at people. And we're here being very quiet and very polite. We're having a read-in in support of the library.
The resistance here in Bonners Ferry is a coalition of liberals and conservatives.
This is a pretty conservative,
very conservative
Christian community.
Very so.
And a lot of people here voted for President Trump.
Very much so.
Most folks around here voted for Trump in 2016, even more voted for him in 2020. But
this goes beyond any conservatism and into almost Nazism, where they're trying to force
concepts
on everybody else. That's not America.
We spoke to the former mayor, who voted for Trump, and he's on the same side as liberal people here.
Well, of course. Yeah, we're neighbors.
City Councilwoman Val Thompson's family has been here 5 generations.
One of my friends had somebody tell him the other day that the American Redoubt is here and it might be time for you to exit.
There are politicians like this running and winning.
I'm talking about really raunchy stuff in these kids' books for 7-year-olds. Hopefully you have secured your local elections. You need a good sheriff and you need 3 county commissioners.
There are claims that critical race theory is being taught in schools, and
we had one mom come in and say, this has Black Lives Matter themes.
Did it?
It's a fairy tale by Chris Colfer, so it probably has, people of color in the book.
On that list of persons given to the library, I saw who was Frederick Douglass.
It had Black lives being considered to matter in the book. And that upset her. Like the characters weren't treated as if they were property or something to be discouraged or frowned upon. They were just treated as normal human beings. And that was a problem for this woman.
Right.
Why is that an issue?
Well, I haven't read Who Was Frederick Douglass, but I'm assuming that there was something in it that was offensive or made somebody feel guilty for being white. I have no idea.
As I've said, it's not in the library. Neither is genderqueer, but...
The conflict is that I cannot say we will not get them, because if we're a library, if the public comes and requests those books, we will get those books. That's what we do.
They say they are not censors, that this library must serve everyone.
And Nick joins us from that library.
It's just the concept of a public library where everybody can go and get books. Just absurd, right? Just absurd. Just like this teacher in Oklahoma being targeted for doing nothing more than showing children how to get books from the library. Former Norman High teacher receives hundreds of vulgar messages and death threats after the Secretary of Education tweeted about them. So let's hear the story here. But they were. I hope they go into the reason why they were let go, which or fired or whatever, forced to step down, was because they showed children how to access books at the local library. Just want to repeat that again. This woman is receiving violent death threats for telling her students how to access the book depository at the public library. In the United States in 2022, and the people doing it think they are patriotic, that they are the true owners of this country. That is slanderous. Telling students how to access the public fucking library is not giving them pornographic material. These people are fucking fascists. They're disgusting. The Sky comment, I don't know. And there is a market double standard. Texas School Board, thank you, Star Craving, thank you. Texas School Board declines "In God We Trust" signs written in Arabic or with rainbow colors. Remember, they passed a law saying you had to display any sign that said "In God" or "We Trust" or "In God." Was it just the logo or any kind of God shit? Or the slogan, "In God We Trust." So a troll, a virtuous troll, decided to write "In God We Trust" with the American flag, and "In God We Trust" in rainbow colors with the American flag, and proposed that those be displayed. Some civilians are out to prove maybe you can mess with Texas. The Texas School Board has declined "In God We Trust" signs written in Arabic or with rainbow colors after a civilian living in the area offered them at a recent meeting. Do we have the local news hit on this? I thought there was going to be a video with the Inside Edition. Here we go. Yeah, let's go with the local news hit here.
Why is more God not good?
And are you saying you don't have like 1 square feet of space in our buildings?
Shravan Krishna tried to donate In God We Trust signs created by current and former students to the school board that were in the colors of the LGBT and transgender flags, as well as one in Arabic. 2 weeks ago, the district accepted In God We Trust signs from a self-proclaimed Christian conservative cell phone provider that donated $500,000 to influence school board elections in the county. The district is required to accept them under a new state law, but they declined this donation, saying they don't have to accept more than 1 copy. That isn't in the state law, but the board president said it's their reading of it.
And all of us in this community.
Oh, wow. That's your reasoning. Oh, my God. Do you guys know what this is? This is the No Homers Club. It says no homers. We can have 1 homer. Oh shit, they pulled the No Homers Club.
Excluded intentionally by our schools, and that's why it's very frustrating for us.
Another focus tonight was books. Last week, Carroll ISD was reviewing whether a book written by George Dawson, the grandson of a former slave, could be taught in the district.
Just so everybody knows what I'm talking about here. Is a bit from The Simpsons. You can reference The Simpsons in pretty much any kind of news, right?
Hey, Billy! Hey, Joey! Come on in! There's plenty of room! Sorry, not you, Homer.
Why not? But you let in Homer Clumplet.
It says no homers. We're allowed to have 1.
That's the rule they're pulling over here with their In God We Trust sign.
School that's named after him. There were concerns over.
I told you, Scott Comment. I told you. I said do not watch this stream. I'm sorry. I love your face. Good night.
A lynching, but Dawson's great-grandson said he's read the book to students every year and called it hurtful last week. Tonight, he spoke directly to the board.
So how can we move forward to realize, to see how it is taught and taught properly, so we can actually get together and sit down and see how it can be taught correctly, and it's not sit there and sugarcoat it.
The advocacy group that tried to donate those signs didn't say tonight if they plan to challenge the district's decision in court. Live in Southlake, I'm William Joy.
Once again, I'm sorry for getting off with the ads on Twitch. Like, I think they played for you. My apologies. I was gonna take a break and try to catch them, but since I think you already got the ads, we're gonna go on. More of this fucking bullshit. VA nurse practitioner files a lawsuit against CVS. Says they fired her for not providing abortion drugs.
In Northern Virginia claims she was fired by CVS because she refused to provide abortion-inducing pills.
Sitting Gal, good evening. I don't know what you're talking about. R.M. Brown?
Now filed a lawsuit in Prince William County against a drugstore chain. She did not provide the drug because of her religious beliefs as a Catholic. Casey says in January, CVS told her they would no longer accommodate her choice and fired her just a few months later. 7 News reached out to CBS for comment. We are still waiting for a response.
Let's see how the... Oh, no, I didn't Sitting Cow. But great minds think alike. I don't know who R.M. Brown is. Okay, I will, absolutely. They did it in reference to that story? Like that made them think of the same thing? Because that's fucking freaky. Because, yeah, I didn't even... One time, somebody told me I was a Steve Hofstetter ripoff. At the time, I had no clue who Steve Hofstetter was. I went and looked him up. I'm like, thanks, dude. Like, that's a compliment. That's exactly what it's gonna be. It's gonna be interesting to see how the courts rule on this. I would think that it's pretty cut and dry, but once again, we have a stacked court in favor of these fucking fascists. Because I can show you where the Indiana court sided with the religious fascists right here. Indiana court sides with Catholic diocese in firing a teacher. The Indiana Supreme Court ruled Wednesday that religious freedom rights protect the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Indianapolis from being sued by a teacher who was fired from his job at a Catholic high school for being in a same-sex marriage. I'm gonna bet the nurse wins her suit. Meanwhile, these kind of cases get shot down. Joshua Payne Elliott argued in his lawsuit that archdiocese leaders, wrongfully forced his firing in 2019 from his job of 13 years as a world language and social studies teacher at Cathedral High School in Indianapolis by mandating that all Catholic schools under its purview enforce a morality clause barring employees from entering into same-sex marriages. State Supreme Court decision said religious institutions had the First Amendment right to decide matters of church governance for themselves. Meanwhile, this one is heartbreaking. This comes from my alma mater. But it's not too surprising to me. East Tennessee State University removes references that Title IX law protects LGBTQ students at a lawmaker's behest.
ETSU to remove references to LGBTQ plus people as being protected under Title IX.
A letter was sent to ETSU President Brian Nolan from Republican State Representative John Reagan. He's from Oak Ridge. The letter sent last Monday, and the university says that they have until tomorrow. He says the university has until tomorrow to comply.
It says ETSU must remove language saying LGBTQ plus people are protected under the federal Title IX law. The letter says it needs to be removed from any university publications, policies, or web pages. Ansley Daniel has been digging through this letter today.
Ansley, ETSU not the only school in Tennessee that got that message, right?
Nope.
Josh and Sarah, Representative Reagan told us today that leadership at every publicly funded university across the state received this letter. ETSU, being one of those universities, has already made some changes to its policy, but one alum tells us that she thinks this is just the beginning of attacks against the LGBTQ plus community. The 6-point letter to ETSU President Brian Nolan advises the university.
It's not the beginning. We got to stop saying it's the beginning. We're in the middle. We're in the middle of a fucking war. The beginning is long past us. That's what doing the stream tonight proved to me. Like, if there was any doubt in my mind before, it has solidified it tonight. This is all over the fucking country. I didn't have enough time to include all of the stories that are like this. This is just a survey. This is just a survey of what's going on in the United States here on September 4th, 2022. Fascism is here. And it's been here for a while, and a lot of people have been in denial. And I'm not in a good mindset after doing this tonight.
University to drop any references that Title IX protects LGBTQ plus people.
When I reviewed the policies, by the way, some of the universities in our state still have not completed their input to me on their policies, which was due back in July. Nonetheless, I took what I had, and I also reviewed their websites for policy statements. And I found some concerning issues.
And of course, that's exactly the way that motherfucker would look. For those of you listening on the audio, you already know. You already know what he looks like. You fucking a Baptist preacher that would tell you that music is the song of the devil or some shit like that. That's exactly what he looks like. You know it.
Issues in those policy statements on the website.
Title IX began as giving women equal rights to men, but a June 16, 2021 news release from the U.S. Department of Education says enforcement would now include discrimination based on sexual orientation and on gender identity. It even threatened to remove funding for universities that didn't comply.
Universities get a huge amount of their funding from the federal government, either directly or indirectly. There's research grants, there's Pell grants, there's student loans. If they choose to cut that off, then the universities are in a financial bind that is almost indescribable.
A federal July injunction, though, says college and university publications, policies, and websites aren't required or even authorized by law to state or imply that Title IX protects LGBTQ students, and keeping them could be interpreted as violating state law.
I would probably recommend that we call that organization in front of my committee for an explanation. My committee has the power to sunset any state agency. The sunset literally means to dissolve it. And we have done that in the past.
After News Channel 11 posted a web story earlier today.
Yeah, don't do what I say or I will dissolve you. You are a fascist.
ETSU changed the Title IX page of its website. It went from describing the law as protecting individuals of all gender and sexual orientations to protects individuals from discrimination on the basis of sex.
My personal advice right now would be to reword that. The way it's worded right now is confusing. And in fact, it conflates, just like the U.S. Department of Education did, Title VII and Title IX guidance.
ETSU alumna, Democratic State Senate candidate, and member of the LGBTQ community, Kate Craig, is calling this a form of blackmail.
You threaten their funding, you're attacking the LGBTQ community. So it's part of the slate of hate that's coming out, because they're finding every way, shape, or form to make it more difficult that if you identify as being gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, if you identify under any of these labels, then they were wanting to make it more difficult to exist here.
Craig also fearing this is just the beginning of more restrictions on her community.
Well, the Supreme Court's already made it known that this is their agenda, to overturn same-sex marriage, to overturn marriage equality. We've seen that in the op-eds. We've seen that in Justice Clarence Thomas's opinion that came out regarding Roe v. Wade, that this is part of his agenda. So I see this as the Nashville legislators took that as the signal to go, yes, move forward with that.
When asked for comment, ETSU spokesperson Jessica Vaughton said that the university isn't prepared to speak about this letter as its legal team is continuing to review the request. But in an email response, she wrote that we will respond as requested.